Autonomous maintenance is where you share the work with the operators. This is certain tasks that you want to now have the operator being involved in. For instance, with your own cars, when you're driving your car around, you're the operator of your car. Do you notice when the car starts to sound a little different? Maybe it smells different, handles a little different. Well, we like to look at that our operators know their equipment well enough, since they operate them every day, they can detect first and foremost something's not quite right with this equipment. So let's take advantage of that experience and have them tell us something's not right, something's going wrong. Let's try to fix it before the warning light goes on. We have some issues. So some of the things we can help let our operators do is we can have them involved into a daily cleaning of the machine. Again, that's not just to clean it for a 5S, that's clean to inspect. They need to look for things. We need to set up a system so they know what to look for. They can look at basic lubrication. That's something operators can do. They can look at basic tightening. Are everything tight? Are bolts tight? We're not asking them to completely understand the schematics of a machine, but there are basic operational things we can have operators do and use their senses that they can tell us if something's not quite right, so we can attack something before it becomes a major downtime issue. That's what we want to set up. So we're getting away from I operate, you fix it, to we're all responsible. And then instead of I operate, you clean, we're all responsible for cleanliness. So we want to get involved, everybody, make sure. So one of the things that I like to teach, especially like with the maintenance, is when maintenance goes in and works in an area, they should also help clean the piece of equipment. Some maintenance does a really good job of making sure the machine is in better condition when they leave it than when they got there. Others, you see handprints all over the place, and you see grease, and it just is in worse condition. So we want to make sure everybody's responsible for cleaning the machine. Operators can probably detect 75% of all maintenance problems at the earliest stages. And by doing the involvement of operators, then you can say operators can take care of those lower skill tasks, and that frees up the maintenance crew, the skilled trades, to really do the more advanced things. So you're not wasting the talent of your skilled trades on doing some of the lesser talented items like changing lube, okay, changing filters, absolutely. And then you can come up with what level that your operators can be engaged in, and then concentrate your skilled trades on the more advanced things, and then have them concentrate on now proactive things, because again, what you've done is you've taken things out of their bucket, and now you're going to fill it up with things that are more proactive, and that's what we want to get to, so they're actually working on the things they should be. Now, the 7 steps to autonomous maintenance is, again, the initial cleaning is part of it. Look for the sources of contamination. Look for those hard-to-reach places where the sun doesn't shine. That's where you want to go into. You want to go into those places of the machine you don't normally see. That's usually not the outside. Everything gets wiped down on the outside, but nobody ever goes on the inside of the machine. Look what your standards for cleaning and lubrication are. Develop them. Have general inspection. It may take you 3 years just to develop that. You think it's pretty simple, but depending on the size and the scope of your facilities, expect it to take years to get that developed on a regular daily basis. And then you can get into more operations where there's other inspections that you can do, and everybody's working as a team to get things done to look at the life cycle of your pieces of equipment. Now, some tools that can help you. Visual boards. Again, we like visual. We like brief meetings. We mentioned about that earlier. And then one-point lessons. You can have an actual TPM board or autonomous maintenance board set up in your areas. You can have it by zone, by machine. But basically, you're focusing just strictly on the activities used to improve or maintain your piece of equipment. You can have pictures of the people involved with it, have the layout of the area. This is what we found out by initial cleaning. This is what our definition of cleaning is. Have before and after pictures involved. Put tag lists up, so when you tag the piece of equipment, make a list of all those. Track your OEE. Look at tags that you actually saw. Share some of your learning with your one-point lessons. Look at where some of the sources of contamination are. Basically, it's a communication board to know what's going on. So we as management can also go to that piece of equipment and see what's being done and help coach. One-point lesson. Take something that you learned in your cleaning process or in your TPM, and then put it on one side of a piece of paper and share the information that you learned. In this case, you're looking at the compressed air. And on that particular case, you got a picture of it, and you're showing what causes the mess, and don't make a bigger mess. It's just a simple lesson. Here's a TPM where you have cards in action, and you have a TPM board. where people can see what's going on, what's a part of the cleaning, what's the schedule, what are some of the tag issues, and a log of that. Now be careful with these boards, because it's real easy to set up the boards and set up the system. But when I talked to the operator on this board, because I thought it was pretty cool, I said, what do you think of the board? Oh, I don't like it. Well, why not? Well, I'm doing my cleaning and stuff, just like they were taught, but no one's doing anything on the cards. Maintenance is not following up on anything. So she called it her mocking board. Okay? It mocks me. It teases me that all these things are going to get done with my machine and nothing's being done. So it's my mocking board. So you don't want to turn these great visuals into something that just in her face shows her that we don't care about you or your piece of equipment. We have higher things that we need to do, and we'll get to them later. You're not a high priority. So her level of enthusiasm dropped dramatically as a result of no one helping her when she's doing her thing of tagging these issues and doing the daily checks. So be careful of that portion of it. So create a checklist. Work with your operators, work with your maintenance to figure out some of the things that they can work on. Focus on the cleaning to inspect. Look at oil replacements, look at filters, look at lubrication, some of the simple things. Let your operators be the eyes and ears of your piece of equipment. And you can make that easy. Have an operator checklist. This is a simple example of a machine with numbers showing these needs to be checked and how often and how you do it. So it's their checklist. So the operator knows what to do. You can check their checklist to make sure that they're doing it. Make it simple. Create your own. Have a picture, which I like visual. Show the simple tasks and how often that they need to be done. You can even have initials off to the side to make sure the operator checks off. So not only can the operator use the checklist, you can use the checklist to audit it. Part of our standard work. And then work with the operators to implement it. Here's an example that it's a little bit longer. They had a couple pages that they do instead of one page, but what they did is the task number, task 1, you could actually go to the machine and it was labeled task 1. So that made it easier for the operator to see where in the piece of equipment that they can do their check. So again, make it very visual, have the instructions already set up so the operator knows how simply to make the checks. Also look at different things like the 5S. Here's an example of a motor on the left-hand side. It's dirty. We took the cover off. It was dirty. And what happens when you have that dirt inside that motor? Okay? It heats. What's the purpose of the fan? What's the function of the fan? To cool with air. If it's clogged up with dirt, what's it going to do? Okay? And what's going to eventually happen to the motor? Burn up. And then what do? Replace the motor. What's it going to do in a year? 2 years. Replace the motor again. How often do you replace motors? Okay? Now, a simple thing you can do is open it up, clean it up, and then stick a simple filter system, a simple filter pad on the outside. And now you can have the operator inspecting it and changing the filter. Simple lesson to help reduce the heat on the motor, improve the life of the motor, and keep it clean. Then you can take something like this going, you know, I never knew about that. I never knew you could open that up and clean the fan. I never knew there was a fan in there. Well, make it a one-point lesson. Show the pictures of it and share it with your operators. Maybe you don't know that there's 5 motors on this piece of equipment. And then you can set up a system where you can improve it. All right, look on the gauge on the left. Are we at good pressure or bad pressure? Why not? Not labeled? Have no idea. That's for air pressure. So we had to go to maintenance. We had to go to engineering, find it in a book somewhere, and found out it was 40 psi. So simple Kaizen is 1, label your gauges so you know what you need, and then we put a little piece of green tape, plus or minus a couple, so you can show at a glance if it's good or not. Now, if you looked at the right-hand side, do we have good air pressure? Yes. Okay. You made it visual. Simple thing. You can go through and just set up a system of just making it very visual on your labeling. Okay, visual management here. Are those good or bad? Don't know. So what are some of the things you can do to Kaizen this? 1, put labels on it, right? And you can usually have a range, plus or minus. Next Kaizen you can do is put green ranges, so it's visual, so you can see. Another Kaizen you can do is orientate so all the needles are up. Gauges don't have to all be in one direction, but how quick is it to see this is, all right, that's right too. Yeah, they're all up. Did I save a second or two finding out if I'm good or not? So you can switch the gauges, have them all pointing up as good. Then another Kaizen you can do is you can actually have an alarm system tied to it where it'll sound a little alarm when it's outside. So if you weren't looking, something audible can go off. Different small Kaizens you can do to help make it visual. Okay, again, another picture. Actual picture of a piece of equipment. Can you read that gauge at all? Okay. Then after we cleaned it up and had it set up, you can now read the gauge and you know the indication if it's good or bad. Now you don't have to use green, you could also use red. In this case, you know between the red is good, right? Outside is bad. So use your own imagination to put it and make your labels pretty easy to see. We talked about tightening bolts to make them, make sure they're not loose. One of the quick, simple things you can do is tighten them and then put a little piece of white paint or marking, and you can mark to say, I know that that's tight. So what happens when they loosen up? They don't line up. So without even touching them, you can see if something's loosened up. That's one way you could make it visual. Also, it's a good thing to know if things are moving and are rotating, have arrows to indicate where the rotation is. You can do simple label system. You know the rotation of equipment. You know the direction of air or direction of other utilities. So use directional arrows. Again, you're trying to make it visual. Clearly mark all your labels on the knobs and controls so you know what everything does. You'd be surprised if you just go out to your old piece of equipment how many of your buttons and controls are not labeled. People just know it. Put visual warnings up. It's another great example. Use your TPM boards, set them up so that you can see the tracking. We set this up at the maintenance department so they could track all the future events that they're doing, because they decided that this was a good system to go and do the cleaning, that maintenance was going to be involved in every initial cleaning so they could learn about the equipment. That's a good thing. And then they set up a program so that every month or every 2 months they did a different major piece of equipment. And they set up a system to do that. And then I could track it, or anyone in management could come see how they're doing against their plan. What's their actual against their expected.